For more on this, we turn to CBS News Chief White House Correspondent Major Garrett in our Washington bureau. Major, first, can you lay out for our viewers how the two campaigns will divvy up the responsibilities going forward?
So May 3rd, Indiana. This is going to be where Ted Cruz will make what may be his last best effort to halt the Trump momentum in Trump's bid to win the nomination outright. All the delegates up for grabs in Indiana are now going to be in the hands of Cruz to consolidate anti-Trump forces there. Kasich will not play in Indiana, will not campaign, will ask his supporters there to support Cruz, to essentially focus all anti-Trump energy with the Cruz campaign in Indiana. Cruz will do the same on Kasich's behalf 2 weeks later, May 17th in Oregon, and then in one contest on June 7th in New Mexico. Now, this is publicly acknowledging something that both campaigns have tried to deny for a very long time, which is they, by themselves, can stop Trump. This is now a public recognition that they can't. They have to collude, they have to align forces. They essentially have to treat this as a tag team wrestling match to get their voters and any other anti-Trump voters focused on the goal of stopping Trump. Forget about alliances to Kasich or Cruz or anything like that. This is all about stopping Trump if it's possible. And it's also about strategically tying in that strategy with their campaigns and their hard money, meaning what's donated to them in federally regulated amounts, to super PAC donations that are unregulated, that can come from anywhere, and that may drop money into these states to also stop Trump. It's a way to harness all of these anti-Trump efforts, the super PAC money, the hard money from individual campaigns, and not divide any anti-Trump efforts anymore, at least in these 3 states. And really the most important place for this to see if it works is Indiana a week from tomorrow.
I heard you say stop Trump if it's possible. This Trump train has been rolling along pretty successfully for quite a while now. He has almost 70%. He's 70% of the way to getting that magic number of 1,237 delegates. So you have to ask the question, is this too little too late?
It very well might be. And it's the kind of thing that those in the anti-Trump world and the Republican Party have been urging candidates to do for a long time. But there was always this central problem, one of ego. No candidate wants to say, I can't do it myself. And no candidate wants to say, I need to make a public alliance with another candidate, because that's not how presidential campaigns are typically conducted. You run your campaign, somebody else runs theirs. But there's no time for that ego anymore. There is really no time for anything else but this desperate, very much high-risk public alliance between Cruz and Kasich. And the reason I say it's high risk is it is now publicly telling all Trump voters, we're out to get you, we're out to stop you, and we're going to do everything we can, even if it's unconventional, even if it means creating alliances that we'd rather not create, and doing so publicly. We have no choice but to do that. So it does sound the battle cry for anti-Trump forces, but at the same time, it sounds that same battle cry for Trump forces, and it gives Trump every single talking point and opportunity to say, right, see, who's against me?
That is
Everyone's against me. See, folks? And so that's why it's a high risk. But really, there's no other room or option left for Cruz and Kasich, because they've looked at the numbers. And Cruz says all the time, he said it all last week, Trump can't make it to 1237. This is now a public recognition that he can, and without this very, very unusual high-risk alliance, it might happen.
Major, how rare is it to see a strategy like this, two campaigns teaming up together?
Publicly like this, I don't think there's any precedent for it in American presidential politics, certainly not in the era of modern presidential primaries, which really dates back to the, if you want to be technical about it, the late 50s, but really it wasn't until the modern era, the early 60s, John Kennedy's first campaign in 1960, where you saw preferences in primary votes actually begin to dictate how the nomination would play out, and send signals to delegates, not have delegates decide this all by themselves on the convention floor, which was the historic norm before the modern primary era. So in that era, I've never seen anything like it. There have been quiet sort of wink and nod alliances, but nothing as public and as obvious as this.
Well, it's certainly making a campaign period that has already been pretty interesting and difficult to predict, even more interesting and more challenging to predict. Major Garrett in Washington, thanks a lot.
Sure, my pleasure.